The section that I'm going to read about now is actually one of my very favorite sections here. And because I'm seeing Jean Meyer, I want to give credit because I love giving credit to people. I just love it. Jean read the first manuscript and essentially restructured it. She gave invaluable structural editing suggestions that this section directly emerged from. It's called, you will recognize yourself, Breakthrough Insight, Cultivating Willingness. Do you recognize yourself, Jean? Okay. Willingness is the core ingredient that makes convergent facilitation work. One way in which I see my role as facilitator in groups that are trying to reach a decision is that I'm doing all I can to support more and more willingness until the creativity in the group expands sufficiently to meet the level of willingness, at which point convergence has occurred. In order for you to fulfill that role effectively, I start with teasing apart willingness from two other states which do not lead to truly collaborative solutions: preference and compromise. Lisa, it's time for that first, the balls example with the willingness and preference. Preferences don't lead to collaborative solutions simply because the range of possibilities is too large to converge. We are too idiosyncratic to be able to reach a magical state in which all of us want the same thing. To find willingness, in other words, we may need to stretch. Compromise, on the other hand, doesn't lead to collaborative solutions. Before I say about compromise, I want to show this diagram about willingness, and it's in the book. The book has several diagrams in it. As you see, each individual has their preference and a range of willingness around it. Just think about pizza in case you eat pizza. If you eat pizza, you probably have your favorite pizza. The one that is like, oh, I'm getting pizza. I want this and this and this and this and this on it. But there's many more types of pizza that you can eat willingly, even if it's not your preference. That's the range of willingness. Now, what happens when you bring two people together or more people? Their individual preferences may not align at all, but you will find something that is within the range of where their willingness intersects. That's what this diagram shows. I am now going to go to the part about compromise. On the other end of the challenge about maximizing willingness is the habitual belief that the best we can get short of forcing a decision is a compromise. Compromise is very costly for a group. It is the product of a process of negotiating an outcome, which usually takes place at the level of positions that each party is assumed to continue to hold. Remember when I was talking about this debate that could have happened if we didn't go to the lower level? That's what happens, is that kind of debate at the level of positions, which leads to domination where one side wins or the other side wins, or it leads to compromise where both sides lose. Rather than being about a coming together to embrace an outcome, compromise is usually a form of giving up on having something that truly works for everyone. When I facilitate groups, I make sure to let them know that I'm not aiming for a compromise, because a compromise is a lose-lose outcome. I'm quoting from a dictionary. Agreement or a settlement of a dispute that is reached by each side making concessions. That's the key word, concession. Concession doesn't feel good, stretching does. And convergent facilitation is about a win-win outcome where we make the decision together. To use Mary Parker Follett's words, which I quoted before, convergent facilitation leaves behind domination and compromise as ways of attending to differences, and instead aims for integration. An integrated solution tends to honor a wide range of issues, whereas compromise still maintains the either or nature of the original challenge. As Follett suggested, a compromise is quantitative so that the difference is divided or people give up something to get something else. Compromise is rooted in a worldview that is based on scarcity and separation. An integrated solution, on the other hand, is qualitative so that the difference is transcended. Integration is rooted in a worldview that's based on togetherness and abundance of possibilities to explore. This worldview supports convergence and the emergence of a solution that works for everyone. It is the power of an integrative process that results in what in pure math wouldn't make sense, finding the highest common denominator for the group. Bear in mind that for most groups you are likely to work with, given the reality of the world, you will be the only one to hold the faith that such an integrated solution is possible. In this way, if you can truly throw yourself into the process with conviction, there's no need for members of the group to shift their worldview. In order to create something that works for everyone, your task is to invite people to stretch only to willingness and not beyond willingness. This can be particularly difficult to hold if the issue is very divided and the group has limited resources. At such times, you can be very tempted to go for a compromise. In the next chapter, I offer some tips about how to do that. For now, all that's important is for you to recognize the pivotal nature of this distinction. This distinction can be tricky because the same strategy may be adopted willingly or as a compromise. As a facilitator, it's vitally important for you to be able to discern the difference, even when the people in the group may not. You cannot tell the difference from the solution itself, because the difference is about the inner state more so than the specifics of the agreement. Most of the time when people change agreements explicitly or de facto in their actions, it's because they never entered them for real. This is one of the key ways that energy is drained in so many workplaces. I will skip a bit. If we either don't discern well or don't engage with it when we do, we run the risk of what's happened to untold number of facilitators, myself included. When it finally becomes clear that the apparent agreement wasn't truly wholehearted, there can be a lot of cleanup to do afterwards to regain trust, which often in any event means revisiting the issues.